Namaste everyone. Welcome to this evening's filter coffee session between author Venkatesh Rangan and Professor Kanagasabapathi ji, two very eminent scholars. Professor Sir, let me have the honor of introducing you. Professor Kanagasabapathi ji is a past chairman of ICSSR and a very renowned scholar. He has written many books on Indian economics. Many of them have gone on to become academic material. Welcome you, sir. He is also the chairman for Verandah Club. It's a great honor to have you on this show, sir. Welcome for this evening's book launch. The book written by author Venkatesh Rangan. This is his third book. Venkatesh Rangan ji is a banker by profession and a very interesting scholar. He has written, this is his third book. The first book was on the history of the Marathas, the First Republic, the glory of the Peshwas was brought out. The second one was the age of pie and prose. And this third book is a very important work on geopolitics, especially in today's context, to enlighten us all and particularly the younger generation. The third book is Bharat's military conquests in foreign lands. This book is describes the work between 900 BCE and 1680 Common Era. Indian military operations and expeditions from Mediterranean to the Pacific. This book was launched by the prestigious Maritime History Society on their Founders Day celebration on the 17th of this month in Mumbai, and it was a commemorative lecture was presented by Vice Admiral M.S. Pawar, PVSM, AVSM, BSM retired, and also the keynote address was given by Vice Admiral Dinesh Tripathi, AVSM, NM, flag officer commanding in chief, Western Naval Command. It was a very well attended program and a lot of men in white. It was very inspiring. I was lucky to be there. Thank you, Venkatesh Ranganji. And it was a very nice experience. And I will not take much time. I will request Professor Ji and Venkatesh Ranganji to interact and enlighten on this book and formally launch this book for the viewers of Verandah Club and also all the nationalists who are interested in this subject. Welcome you all.
Thank you, Jagan. Thank you for your fine introduction. It's my pleasure and privilege to be a part of this event. First of all, my congratulations, heartiest congratulations to Sri Venkatesh Rangan. You know, this is a very important work, seminal work, pioneering work, because some of us, people like me, who have been working in the area of economics and society to an extent, you know, we study ancient economics, ancient systems, and, you know, I was part of the Indic or India-centric group that is working on demystifying the leftist myths regarding the economics aspects. But even for people like me, I'm very open to admit that till I came to know about Sri Venkatesh Rangan's book, I never knew that our ancient Indians went abroad and you know made conquests outside India, different parts of the world. So this is a very important work, and I would say that more such work should come, so that, you know, we will come to know that India was not, within quotes, a defensive country as we are used to believe. Except Chola, many times I used to wonder why there was no Indian king who went abroad and made military strikes and all. But Venkatesh Rangan's work clearly says that, you know, there were at least, as far as this book says, 21 expeditions abroad, 10 maritime and 11 land, if I believe right. So running over a period of 26 centuries. It's not as, you know, spanning from 900 BCE, before Common Era, till the 17th century, 1680 CE. So for about 26 centuries, he explains how Indians went abroad and made strikes. You know, we went as far as Palestine this side, and we were ruling parts of Han dynasty. Great achievements by Indians. So it's a very, very important book. I will advise all the people who want to know about ancient India, our own military expertise, what Venkatesh Rangan calls Indian strategic mindset, Indic strategic mindset. So all Indians have to study this. And my suggestion to our friend Venkatesh Rangan is this book should come in all Indian languages, all vernacular languages. So this is a very important work. I'm very happy to uh, have a chance to conduct this program with our friend Venkatesh Rangan. He's a young executive, historian, author. I wish that he should write many more books in spite of his busy schedule outside his official work and all. You know, he has studied so much. When I saw the book, I came to know that he has referred very many texts from outside India. In fact, it's for some parts, largely outside Indian works, Arabic, Chinese, etc. So, my congratulations once again for his hard work. You know, it should have been done by our own leftist, our own scholars, our own Indian universities, history departments, at least for over a period of 75 years, but they have not done it. In fact, they have been doing all wrong things. But Venkatesh Rangan has taken this initiative. So, for all this initiative, I wish him uh, all the very best. Now, we will um, start this discussion without spending much time. So I invite Mr. Venkatesh Rangan to start with myths. You know, we have many myths surrounding us. So you please tell us the myths that we are getting from our own schools and universities, and now how you have demystified many of these myths. Please.
Sure. Thank you, Professor. I think thanks for your really inspiring introduction to me. What I will do is I will just share my screen
Yes.
with the slides, and then maybe you can take the discussion forward from there. So everyone can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Sure. So I just put in the yeah. So my book is basically called Bharat's Military Conquests in Foreign Lands. It's available at Subu Publications. You know, Ritwik, the I would say the founder and owner of Subu Publications, is with us in this session. Let me start off with the grand myths, like so you were talking about. Generally, in any history session or history textbook or any book on Indian history, you have these 3 or 4 myths which are there. One is that no Indian king ever conducted a military operation outside Bharat. When I say Bharat, I include the entire geographical limit of South Asia, obviously. I mean, includes Afghanistan. What was really Bharat was from so many centuries. But the basic myth is that we were continuously invaded. So always invaders came. We were defensive, but our kings never attacked foreign countries. So yes, we were a country of ahimsa. We were known for peace. Our culture and sciences spread, but somehow our Shatara Dharma, right, our Shastriya Vidya was never applied to many of these, invading countries, to these foreign invaders, etc. So that is the principal myth which this book seeks to demolish. I mean, if you have any kind of comments or views on that,
Yes, that is true. That is true. I know these are the usual myths that we believe in. And you have rightly mentioned all these myths.
sure. So, in fact, what I've done is, in order to demolish these myths, I have listed no less than 21 different military operations, conquests, and expeditions by 14 Indian dynasties. And the point I really emphasize is none of these conquests or expeditions were done to A, subjugate a foreign race. So there was no racial supremacy. B, stamp out, subjugate, or wipe out a foreign religion. So there was no example of religious supremacy or fanaticism. So nobody said we will go and destroy your religion, destroy our religion superior. Nothing like that. And finally, there was no conquest or expedition in find 21 expeditions, which we did to have resources. So we didn't say we want some mines, we want some, let's say, oil, etc. So these 3 or 4 principal objectives which we connect with any invader or any conqueror, so-called world conqueror in our Western history, was not there with our Indian conquerors.
No,
So in
this
fact,
is
that
a
is
very, yeah, this is a very, very important point, Mr. Rangan, because we know all conquests used to be for occupying lands or for promoting their own religion or wiping out the existing civilizations. But our own expeditions or military strikes were not in any way connected with any of these things. In fact, you have mentioned, maybe you will be mentioning later, our expeditions resulted in the benefits to the societies that we went. So this is a very important difference, and this is due to our own worldviews, our own concepts due to the Sanatana Dharma. You know, this is what distinguishes the conquest military strikes of ancient Indians with that of others. Is it right?
completely. In fact, I would quote one very interesting Sanskrit shloka from a coin, a very ancient coin, but over many centuries ago. And this coin shows a chhatra. So our Chakravarti tradition, our Digvijaya, why was the Digvijaya launched? So it says, Shitama Vijayati Sucharitrair Divyam Jayati Vikramaditya. So after conquering the Shitij, the earth, by sword, it is by Sucharitra to spread the values of this dharma, Divyam Jayati, that the heavens are also conquered. That person is called a Vikramaditya. So a Chakravarti on the one hand had a sword to establish his rule, but that sword resulted in culture and civilization being spread so that everybody gets the character of different human society rises up to a different level. So I think this objective of raising human society to a higher level, contributing to world welfare, I think that comes very strongly out from this concept of Digvijaya and Chakravarti.
You know, this is something unique to our culture, unique to our civilization. We all know how the British colonialists, now there are details available, looted about 45 trillion worth of wealth from India in a period of about just 180 years, or yeah, about 180 years. But when we went there, even 2,900 years back, we went for a purpose. And that resulted in the civilized, our, you know, um, uh, their own benefits. Like, as you mentioned, urban settlements were established, etc. This is something unique.
Definitely, sir. Definitely, sir.
Yes, yes,
In fact,
yes.
just one more thing I think which you mentioned, which I'll also come back to, is that I have this book I have seen to it that I'm referring to a wide variety of sources. Unfortunately, there is a mindset, especially in our academic, I would say academic, corridors, that anything associated with India, especially the Hindu past, like our prashastis, etc., are fables or mythologies. Our itihasa is really a mythology, etc., right? Now, actually, you'll actually find a lot more history in these itihasa and the prashastis than you find in many of the Greek accounts, the Roman accounts, etc. But even then, because we unfortunately have this mindset, I thought let me correlate it with several other foreign sources. And that's why I have taken a lot of Arabic, Pahlavi, Chinese, Tibetan, Tocharian, Malayan. So nearly 70 inscriptions and manuscripts in 16 languages. So that there's no, I would say there's no dispute on what, let's say, the Sanskrit and the Prakrit and the other Indian sources are saying, actually, Tamil or the other Indian sources are saying.
So
So
you have done, yeah,
sir,
many
you allow,
congratulations.
yes, sure.
Venkatesh, as an academician, I should congratulate you because you have taken a lot of your time, and your hard work has resulted in this important initiative because you have referred to so many books, particularly from outside sources.
Oh.
This is very great for a young scholar like you. You have done a remarkable work, and my congratulations. I know as a teacher, in 2001, OECD came out with its publication with regard to world economic history. Of course, it did its work through the help of many scholars. It constituted a group. And that group came out with a now very famous study called World Economic History, a Millennial Perspective, which for the first time said that during the beginning of the Common Era, 2023 years back, India was contributing 33% to the global economy. And for 18 centuries, almost India remained as the richest country. You will be surprised to know, till I wrote my book in 2006-7, no economist, no economics department mentioned this particular fact. Even after that, for many years, even when foreigners said something good about India, even this internet age, our people refused to accept it. Only in the last 5-6 years, it is in the academic text. So this is our mindset, and in a way, your book is going to defeat that mindset. Yes,
Thank you.
please.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, yes.
So what I'll do is I'll quickly take you through and what you call the participants through each of these 21 expeditions.
Yes.
And maybe we can discuss what are the features of that. And I think you'll get to know what the objectives were also as we go through them basically. So I'll start with the west. I'm starting geographically and then chronologically. I start from the west. I go to east, north, and then the south, basically. In terms of the world, the western part of the world, eastern part of the world, northern part of the world, and Southeast Asia, Indo-Pacific, etc. So the first is a very interesting campaign. So I'll give a very short background about this. So there was in 9th century an Arabic theological scholar called Muhammad ibn Jabr al-Tabari. Okay, so Jarir al-Tabari. Now this person was in Baghdad. He is a known authority for any interpretations of the different religious texts of Islam. But also he wrote a lot of books on history. So he wrote a book called Tariq wa Rasul wa Muluk. And in that, he has devoted an entire chapter. And this person is totally unconnected with India. So he lived most of his life in Tabaristan and kind of in Baghdad, etc. He in fact had a prejudice against Al-Hind and Hindu faith, etc. But he has devoted an entire chapter to a lot of traditions he heard from Humayun, Suleiman, etc., on a great Indian world conqueror whom he dates lived about 3,000 years ago. Now, unfortunately, we only get to know one name or one small part of it called Zaraj. Now, Zaraj in Semitic means Zara. So in Sanskrit, it could mean Jaya. But this Jaya, is it Vijaya? Is it Jayasimha? Unfortunately, we don't have that full name. We know it is Jaya basically. So this Chakravarti Jaya, he was obviously a Chakravarti. Very interestingly, in about this time, there was a king in Jerusalem who imposed an Abrahamic kind of religious policy. So he said the Old Testament and Abraham, whoever worships idols, he will either be killed or you need to break the idols. Now the situation became so bad that his own mother, was an idol worshipper, and she said, I will not leave this idol worship because it's my forefathers have taught me, etc. So he had his own mother executed or put to death. So a group of Hebrew tribes, from there, they traveled all the way to India, to Bharatvarsha, to the court of this king. So can you believe it? In this whole world, they found that only person who could help them was this Zaraj. And he told Zaraj, please kind of come and help us. Our idols are being broken. This king has come, and it's very interesting. I quoted the entire text in my book. So then Zaraj, what he does is he launches a massive expedition, a naval come a land expedition. And Tabari describes this in very lot of details because he gets a lot of different sources. He says the ships were so big that each ship could house 5 elephants, some 10 chariots, some so many soldiers. So it's massive, etc. This expedition goes to the head of Persian Gulf, disembarks, marches to the Mediterranean Sea, and surrounds Jerusalem. And in fact, there's complete victory, right? Now, obviously, Tabari is a person who cannot relish the fact that, idol worshippers are winning. So then he tells a story that, some people say that angels came. And angels came, and even then, so it's very interesting, even angels came, even then the Indian force of Chakravarti Jaya stood its ground. And finally, a typhoon had to come. The typhoon actually took them away. Still, they took the ground and stood their ground in Jerusalem. So it's so interesting that this person was so critical about, let's say, the Hindu faith and Al-Hind. And this is the expedition which happened. So I don't want to dwell too much in detail. We have 20 more expeditions to go. But brilliant example, I think perhaps the only recorded example of a foreign country or an intervention in a foreign country to protect religious persecution of a totally different religion. I mean, this was an ancient idol worshipping religion, something like, let's say, the religion of the ancient Egyptians, the Mesopotamians, the let's say Celts, Norse, etc. Now, to save them, you had an Indian Hindu emperor actually marching all the way. So I think it's a very interesting example. More details are given in my book, actually.
So even at that time, perhaps we were the only civilization in the world that respected all different faiths. And that was very well known in the world at large, right. Even in those days. Amazing, amazing. Yes.
Totally. So I'll go to the next. Next is basically, so this is about Chandragupta Vikramaditya. Very interesting expedition. So he launches a preemptive strike on both Persia and the Central Asian part. So there were Huns, who are a very terror in terms of military at that period of time. This is about 1,600 years ago. And there was the Sasanian Empire. It's called the Golden Age of Persia. So it's a very mighty empire. It is the strongest empire in Persian history. So what Chandragupta Vikramaditya does is he launches a preemptive strike in order to prevent them from invading India. So a very interesting example of preemptive strike here. And the unique thing here is I've used both archaeological and numismatic evidence along with Persian, Chinese, Tibetan, and obviously Sanskrit sources. So I've correlated different here. Two very interesting military, I would say, tactics here. So generally, the Indian army was divided into infantry, cavalry, elephants, the four divisions, etc. Here, Chandragupta Vikramaditya made a forward advance with only mounted archers. So people with bow and arrow who put a horse so that they could shoot 360 degrees all around them while galloping the horse. So this was a very unique military tactic which he used in this battle. And one more very unique tactic he used is he made an entire elephant corpse go up 14,000 feet in the Tajikistan Pamirs. So nobody could believe elephants could go up there. So he kind of, made all preparations, dressed them up, built ramps, fastened chains to those trees on the side, and pushed them up. So again, to give a parallel, recently in 2020, the Indian army put up tanks in the Rechin Pass in the Kailash range to save it from the Chinese, and the Chinese had to withdraw. Similarly, in 1948, the Indians put up tanks in the Jojila Pass to save it from the Indian army, to save it from the Pakistani raiders. So, this was the ancient equivalent of tanks. So they just put it up to high altitude warfare to fight the, let's say, the Huns and the Tucharians at that point. So very interesting campaign, preemptive campaign, which is there basically.
So that means our espionage system must have been very good, and the ability to strike, to go to far off places and strike, must have been very, very good. Excellent.
No, in fact, there's a very interesting Sanskrit shloka which says that it compares the king to a Raja Rishi. So just like a Raja Rishi does not divert himself, being overconfident or underconfident enemy, he analyzes all the strengths and he decided to go by this land route, the Makaran route, Sistan route, where they were the most vulnerable and attack them. So it's a lot of spies. There are a lot of spies. So even crossing the passes of Afghanistan into Central Asia, snipers were sent. So they had special people with arrows, and the specific Sanskrit shloka said that they shot arrows at the people who are hiding in those passes. So again, a classic Recce patrol, which they say in modern army language. So yes, I mean, very well developed espionage system.
What is this Trans-Axonia?
Yeah. So what happened is, so there were two powers here called Huns. Okay, the white Huns. Okay, who are in the region of modern day Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, etc. Then there was a group of people called the Tocharians, whom we call the Parama Kambojas, from very ancient times, from Mahabharata times it's there basically. So this Huns formed an alliance with this Parama Kambojas. And these people were called as a Trans-Oxiana alliance by the Persians. So then the Persians, the Huns, and the Parama Kambojas formed a triple alliance. And that time Sasanians expanded over, you can say, Eastern Europe also. So it was virtually the whole of Eastern Europe, Turkey, West Asia, whole of Central Asia, combining into one, and the whole of Bharatvarsha on the other hand. So it was virtually, you can say, the clash of titans which was happening basically. I'll go next. Next is again a very interesting expedition. Now, very few people will believe this, but there are no less than 4 different Arabic records on this. So 1400 is called Chalukya Pulakeshi II. Satyashreya Parameshwara Chalukya Pulakeshi II launched a naval expedition from the Konkan coast to the Al-Faw Peninsula in Iraq. So Al-Faw, and this expedition was specifically launched to protect the Indian merchant diaspora. Now, you'll be very interested to know that in all Arabic texts of this period, of this early 7th century, this Al-Faw Peninsula here, right, in Iraq, which is the only coastline of Iraq, is called Arde, land of India. Why? Because the Indian merchants had established autonomous, cities. So this was actually, I would say, attacked by the Rashidun Caliphate, the first caliphate of the Arabs, of Islam, basically. And to protect them, Chalukya Pulakeshi, the merchants came and appealed to Chalukya Pulakeshi. A fleet was sent. This was so effective, and you won't believe this, that as per an account quoted again by the same Tabari, very explicitly, the city of Basra. So Basra is the greatest commercial center of the Arabic world. In fact, Baghdad was a political center, Basra was a commercial center. So as per the Arabic record, Basra was set up specifically because of a threat of the Indian Navy, the Chalukyan Navy. So because the Chalukyan Navy was so successful, you can see the 2 black here, if I may show this map on the right-hand side, the Arabs had to retreat 80 kilometers inland. So this was where they were, 80 kilometers inland, go 15 kilometers off any water course, and set up a city here called Basra. They called it Al-Mahfuz, where they could be protected, because it was against the range of any of the Indian artillery, the naval artillery. So the city of Basra, and this was the only defeat of the Rashidun Caliphate in its history. They defeated Persians, they went right up to Central Asia, they went into Europe, wherever, not Africa. They were defeated by Chalukya Pulakeshi II. So very interesting expedition once.
Very, very informative. The objective was to protect diaspora protection. That means even before that, our own diaspora must have been living there for commercial, for different purposes, maybe in several thousands. That means our trade relationship must have been going on for several centuries and all. Great.
100%. In fact, I think you made this point that 33% of the world GDP at different points of time was actually of Bharat, right? So, in fact, the Arabic letters, so I quoted a few letters here of the Caliph and his generals. They say that there were different Indian communities like Sabajiya, Zat, which they call, and this whole land in Al-Abula, which was a sport here, was called Farje Hind, the gateway to India. And this whole area was called Arde Hind, land of India. So you can imagine how the Indian merchants set up. Their own temples would have been there. Their own culture would have been there. So it was called Little India out there.
I remember scholars like Al-Idrisi, they have written very highly about Indian businessmen, using very high words like, people of very good character, honest, known for their honesty and all. Very good. Okay.
I'll go next. Next is a very interesting expedition. So in the around the I would say 8th, 9th centuries, in fact 8th, 9th, 10th century, there was a kingdom or empire in North India centered around Kannauj. This is called a Pratihara Empire. So you have many famous kings like Mihira Bhoja, Mahendrapala, etc. So there was one emperor called Nagabhat II, and his son was called Ramabhadra. Now around 815, 816, 820 AD, we find 3 separate records. One, a Sanskrit record in Gwalior called the Gopadri Prashasti. Then Omani Siyar or Omani Annal called Tuhfat al-Ayan from Oman. Okay, and a Tasfir or a kind of letter by a Ibadi or an Islamic missionary from Basra. So we have basically 3 different records. All of them speak about multiple raids, naval raids in ports in the Persian Gulf, Zulfar, Dibba, Basra, etc. The I would say reason for this expedition was that the Arabs were in Sindh at that point of time, and Pratihara Nagabhat was wanted to liberate part of Sindh. So in order to disrupt their supply lines, so they used to have supply line from sea coming all the way from Basra, Arabia, etc. to Sindh. So to break the supply line, these expeditions were launched. It is in fact compared to Lord Rama leading the Vandras across the ocean. And it is said that just like Lord Hanuman burnt Lanka, these people have gone and they are burning the ports. So you can say, if you actually look at it, even the Ramayana, Lord Hanuman's expedition to, let's say, Lanka after he meets Devi Sita was actually nothing but a surgical strike. Lanka was burnt. Psychologically, Ravana and his ministers were terrified. So it's a psychological attack. So this is exactly what really happened here by the Pratiharas against the Abbasid Caliphate. Very powerful, one of the most powerful caliphates. Al-Mamun, after Harun al-Rashid, famous caliphs, they were put on a back foot by this military aid.
So they must have traveled through ships only. That means shipping must have been very sophisticated, very advanced.
Totally. In fact, the Arabic records tell us that these ships were called barijas, small assault vehicles, which had a crew of around 50, which had fire throwers and also had catapults. So which could go a certain, these things which could throw firestones and other things. So definitely, I mean, the fact that they could navigate these vessels through these waters against an hostile enemy, I think it's definitely, shipping technology was very advanced in India, I think right from Rigvedic times. In fact,
Yes.
in the Rig Veda, you had a famous story of Vuju, the Ashwins. I mean, they had huge ships of 100 oars, which could, be plowed into the ocean. So I think it's Lothal dockyard. I mean, the Indian maritime history is very, very ancient. Going next, so this is a very famous Rajput ruler called Bappa Rawal. Now, in fact, there is a lot of, I would say, records in the Rajput families, like the Delwara annals, the Mewar annals, which talk about the conquests of this kind of ruler in different parts of Western Asia, especially Khurasan, which is in northern Iran near the Caspian Sea, etc. Now, I have corroborated it by saying that that point of time, if you actually look at it, even in the Arabic world, right, the Abbasid Empire, etc., there was a lot of political chaos going on. And it's the same period in which you find two other Digvijayis also. Yashovarman, who claims to have conquered the Parasika and his Parasikas in the Gaudavaho, and Lalitaditya Muktabira, who also claims to have fought Al-Mamun. So, it is comparing all these three together. I have said that it is very much possible. You also have traditions in the Pashtun community, Naushera Pashtun, which go back to Bappa Rawal. There is also certain Arabic texts which mention Rawal as a great Indian warrior. Barkram, Va, Rawal, etc. So this is under expedition here. It was counter-offensive. The Arabs had invaded Bharat and had come to Mewat. So in a counter-offensive, he had pushed them back to Khorasan and the Caspian Sea, basically. Then I will conclude my western part with a very interesting expedition, very recent one, in the 17th century. So Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj protected a voyage from Jaitapur, that is in the Konkan coast, to Mocha in the Red Sea. Now, what happened that time is there was a karta system. So all the Europeans used to say that you have to ask a permission, pay taxes called kartas. He'll give you a pass called kartas, and you can go in that. You can go via that, basically the ocean, etc. So Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj wanted to break that. So in Jaitapur, there were two ships which were laden. A lot of ships from Karnataka coast and Gujarat coast combined with that. And in fact, the British sent a fleet to oppose it. The Arabic Yorubas also were against it. Despite all this, they flew the Indian flag and escorted this voyage right up till Mocha in the Red Sea. So this was to clearly establish that we are a Swarajya, not only on land, also on sea. So this was I would say, to break the Karta system and break the control of the Arabs and the Europeans over the Western Indian Ocean.
Great.
I'll go now to the east. So unlike modern India or modern Bharatvarsha, where we are smaller than our ancient historical geography, the exact opposite is of China. Modern China is geographically bigger than its ancient historical civilization and geography. So there are several parts called Yunnan, which is present-day province in southern China, which at that time were a separate civilization entity, like Xinjiang, etc. So this, in my book, I have covered them as separate territories because historically they were separate territories. So Han China, the eastern and central part of modern China. Firstly, very interesting expedition of the Mauryas to conquer Yunnan in 245-240 BC. So southern part of China conquered. As per now, I quoted two texts. One is the Ming period. So there was a Ming bureaucrat in about the 13th, 14th centuries. He wrote a journal documenting the aboriginal tribal traditions in his book. In that, he mentions about how the Mauryas had conquered Yunnan and also introduced agriculture. So we always talk about rice being introduced in China, but actually, according to this own Chinese source, rice was introduced from India or from Bharat to Yunnan and via that to China. Second, a Yuan source actually tells us that there was an Ashwamedha Yagna, a kind of a horse running an army behind it, a ceremonial horse running, which kind of conquered Yunnan. Now, a very interesting point to note here is that we generally believe that Ashoka became a Buddhist after the Kalinga War. So if you look at any history of Ashoka, it says there was a Kalinga War, he was very horrified by the violence and he became a Buddhist. Now, if you actually look at all these Tibetan Chinese and Buddhist sources I've quoted here, this was only for a temporary period. In fact, there was a great crisis around the mid of his reign, and he actually had to launch and become a Chakravarti again. He had to actually support, lot of Vedika rituals also. His own children became great Astika Bhakts. So Jaluka became a Mahadev follower. Dharma Vivardhana Kunal, as I'll come later on, became a Vaishravana or a Lord Kubera follower. So there was a lot of churning which happened, which is often missed out from our textbooks. Right? One of the churning was there was Ashwamedha Yagna, which led to this Yunnan conquest.
That means this Mauryan kings, they must have crossed our Himalayan borders and then went there. Very difficult task, was it?
Totally. In fact, this Yunnan expedition was to the Purvachal ranges. So what we call today as the Murray, Naga Hills, Paktaibam, Sagyang, the northern parts of Burma, Arakan, and then going from there on to the the Yunnan part, Mekong Delta, as they call it. Next is basically about Han China itself. Now, it's very interesting that when the Mauryas were in Yunnan, that was a period of great instability in Chinese history called the Zhao period. Now, the Zhao period had 6 warring states, and this instability was affecting Mauryan rule in Yunnan. So, to protect it, the Mauryas launched a conquest and ruled over China itself, the Chinese heartland, the Han heartland, the Yellow River, the Huanggo heartland, basically. Now, why do we say this? We say this because Chinese texts, classical texts themselves say that the Mauryas ruled over us. In fact, a Chinese emperor called Wu of Liang modeled himself after Ashoka, saying that Ashoka ruled over me before this, so I am now modeling myself after him. A Chinese bureaucrat called Cheng Yua in the Tang era says that Jambu Dvipa included most of Asia, or China was also part of Jambu Dvipa, and an iron wheel monarch, Chakravarti, which we call it, right? The Kali Yuga Chakravarti, iron wheel monarch, was actually ruling over both China and India, basically. So this is, I think, Chinese text itself, which I've quoted, which shows the Mauryan rule over China. And in fact, the first unified state of China, called the Han Empire, came immediately after the end of the Indian rule over China. So there's definitely could be some connection between that and the unification of China later. So all these are Chinese texts. So I'm not, quoting any Indian text out here. Then a very interesting expedition about 1,000 years back. Now, one of the very, I would say, enterprising and dynamic personalities about in the 12th century was a person called Ghadwal Govindachandra. So Ghadawal were a dynasty which ruled in Kannauj. Okay. Now, around 1114 AD, the Ghaznavids, the dynasty of Muhammad of Ghazni, attacked Kannauj, imprisoned its king, and started blackmailing the nobles out there. That point, a great savior arose called Govindachandra. Govindachandra went to the camp of the Ghaznavids, defeated them, pushed them back right across to the northwest, and he established his kingdom there. He was son of. Now, this Govindachandra established an alliance with the Cholas, Kulatunga Chola, and his sister married a Chola prince, and you find her inscription not in the north, but in Tanjavur. So very, very interesting personality. Now, the same Govindachandra, as per Prakrit Paingalam, okay, he conquered China and Bauta, both. So one of the very rare kings who conquered both mainland China and Tibet. So separately, it's mentioned in Prakrit Paingalam. This was an era of fragmentation in Tibet. Now, why this thing. Now, let's not forget, he was an ally of the Cholas. The Song Empire of China supported a faction of the Shailendras, who are a Sumatran wing, and rejected all access to the Indian merchants, mostly the Chola merchants, the Ainu River, etc. So this campaign was carried out by Kulatunga Chola, and one of the contingents was led by Govindachandra. That is my corroborative hypothesis based on, let's say, whatever is the evidence available. And he defeated the Song faction. So the one faction in the Chinese military under them, which was defeated. So very interesting expedition. A hero who fought both the invaders from the west, invaders from the east, and protected merchant interests, and formed an alliance with Cholas and the Ghadwalas. So between Kannauj and Tanjavur. Very, very interesting personality.
Really interesting to know that Govindachandra had a marital relationship with Chola kings. What must have been the reason, Venkatesh?
See, one is, I think at that point of time, the Cholas, I think before during the time of Rajendra Chola, there was a Uttar Digvijaya carried out. Ganga Kondam Chola, when he went up to the Ganga. So that time, a lot of North Indian dynasties like the Parmaras and the Gadawalas allied with the Cholas. So number one, to stabilize their own position, because they had to face the Ghaznavid invasions, right? So having a strong ally backing them economically, financially, even militarily, is very, very helpful. So the Gardwalas themselves are under attack. I think the famous story we hear is of his father being captured and him saving him. So obviously he would have noticed that there's a very strong subcontinental power here called the Cholas. Makes greater sense for me to ally with them, economically and politically become stronger, and devote all my attention in fighting these foreign invaders. So I would say, very visionary leader who actually could think of that.
This Dravidian people in Tamil Nadu, they have been saying that there is no relationship between South and North. Even marriage relationships were there 800, 900 years back.
In fact, her inscription of this Rajput princess is found in Tanjavur. It's very, very interesting. I've also mentioned that in my book.
Okay.
It's very interesting.
Okay.
Then I go to North, that is Central Asia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkestan. The first is a very, again, interesting expedition by Dharma Vivardhana Kunal. Dharma Vivardhana means one person who expanded Dharma. And truly, he expanded Dharma everywhere. In fact, you will see to it that he was son of Ashoka, right? But he had his own spiritual discovery, and he became a great, as later on, a great supporter also of the Astika faiths. And he did a Devalaya Sthapanam in Khotan, in Xinjiang province of China, where he established a Shri Kubera Tirtha Kshetram. And this is mentioned by the Chinese also. So there is a Sanskrit text called Kamsa Desa Vivarna. So our ancients used to call a lot of territories in these Central Asian areas as Kamsa Desa, Agni Desa. So Agni Desa was the northern parts, the Karasahar, the Kazakhstan. Southern parts of the Taklamakan region was called as Kamsa Desa. So Kamsa Desa Vivarna, etc., mentions about this great thing. He broke through the Karakoram range. Now, it is very important. Today, we know about the Siachen Glacier, right? Our soldiers are there standing at minus 40 degrees, 14,000, 20,000 feet altitude. Imagine over 2,200 years ago, and that too, over 2,200 years ago, if you see the date, they broke through the Karakoram mountains. And this infrastructure, we had rope bridges, steps, stone steps, is mentioned in a Chinese text called Fokoki. They broke through that Karakoram range, went to 1,000 kilometers, marched north across Xinjiang province of China to a place called Kutana Hill in Kazakhstan, in what is called the Issyk Kurgan region. Word Kurgan comes from word mounds. So in that Kutana Hill, which comes from the word Kustana, which comes from the word Kunala, he crowned himself as a Raja or a Viceroy of the let's say of Bharata over there, of the Mauryan Empire over there. So you just imagine, for a moment, in some far off place in Kazakhstan, this person, all the Vaidika chants are going, the Raja Abhishek is happening. It's a wonderful scene. He was truly a Dharma Vivardhana, establishing also a Tirtha Kshetra in Khotan. So truly a exceptional character.
One of the personalities or ancient kings that I came to know through your book was very interesting personalities was Kunala. You described him as a very virtuous person with lot of abilities, administrative, military abilities and all. Very, very interesting. At least most of us do not know anything about this great personality in history. Very good, very good, very good.
Next is actually, I think it's more better known. Lalitaditya Muktapida was a great emperor of Kashmir around the 8th century. Now he's said to have conquered the Uttara Kurus, Bhautas, also have conquered the basically the Tukharas. So all across Central Asia and let's say Tibet. This is a preemptive strike to counter Arab and Tibetan influence in these regions. So Tibetans are very aggressive at that point. Even the Arabs had reached up to Talas in Xinjiang because they were expanding. That was a period of expansion of, let's say, the caliphates. So to fight that, he had, he launched his expeditions to these areas. Uttara Kuru is a very ancient name. Kyrgyzstan and those areas, right from the times of Itihasa, Mahabharata, Raghuvansa, Ramayana, they are actually mentioned in those kind of texts also.
We know, at least I know Lalita is a great administrator and scholar, but this part I didn't know. Very good.
Yes, next is another very interesting personality, again unknown. So about 900 years back, in Malwa or the present Madhya Pradesh region, there was a person called Lakshma Deva. His brother was called Naravarma Deva or Naravarma. Now, Muhammad Ghazni and all the other his dynasties had continuously invaded Bharat at that point of time. Somnath was desecrated. We all know that story. There was a huge genocide and all this stuff. So Parmana Lakshmadeva said that why can we not go and fight them in their own countries? Now there's a very interesting Sanskrit shloka called Nagpur Prashasti. So it's found near Nagpur, so it's called Nagpur Prashasti, but it's also called Parmana Prashasti. So this says that Lakshman Deva, he said, if I go so far, who will bother to rule my kingdom? Who will protect my kingdom? So his brother told him, like the great Bharata and Lord Rama, he said, I will rule with your slippers on throne. That till you come back, this throne will not be occupied by anybody but you. So it's such a great brother. He fought all the way to Vangshu. Vangshu in Sanskrit means the Oxus River, right up to Uzbekistan, defeated 3 Turkish empires and brought them to heel, and then came back. And when he came back, he saw that his brother was ruling so well that he abdicated the throne. He said, Naravarman, you rule this kingdom. And then he traveled far and wide. Today, you find stories about this Lakshman in Kannada tradition, you find in Gujarati tradition, in Rajasthani tradition. So one of the rare personalities who transcended his region and is found in several other, I would say, regions also. So a very nice personality. So a classic example of a Chakravarti, dharmic personality. You can see you get to learn a lot of morals from him. So no Alexanders, no Robert Clives, no Muhammad of Ghaznis. I'll just use the word. A person who had a sterling character, but also a great warrior. I mean, that is Lakshma Deva. I mean, imagine you have a dynasty where brothers fight brothers. Muhammad Ghori had to go back to Ghazni because his brother took over the throne. Here, a brother in his slippers was managing the throne, and he said, "Please, you go ahead and fight the invaders, fight the Turkharas, the Milechas who have come. I will keep the throne for you." I mean, what a classic example of family love and brotherly tradition.
Yes.
I'm sorry if I'm taking a lot of time.
No, you have to take.
But quickly, I'll go to Tibet. I think Tibet is very well known. I mean, we have so many links with Tibet. A lot of our texts were protected in Tibet during the time of invasions. Even today we have. So, Buddhagupta Vikramaditya. So, again, Western historians often mistranslate Buddhagupta to say Buddha Gupta. And to say that he was a... Buddhagupta is nothing but a Navagrahas. Buddha, it's a planet actually in our Navagraha system. In fact, Buddhagupta was a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. And he built a temple in Airikina in Madhya Pradesh. This is the Garuda Dhwajastambha of that. So this Buddhagupta Vikramaditya actually conquered up till Tibet. There's an epigraphic evidence called the Damodarpur copper plate inscription, which says that a survey was carried in a place called Donga Grama, modern day Donka Pass in North Sikkim, between the border of, let's say, India and Tibet. And interestingly, you will see that at that particular point of time, Tibetan traditions also say that the first Tibetan family unified of Tibet was established at the same time. And an Indian prince came from the same Donka region and established his dynasty. So Buddhagupta Vikramaditya's, a campaign in Tibet which started the unification of Tibet. Very interesting kind of thing. Objective was to open new trade routes and new markets and securing a sacred site. So Koka, Koka Mukhaswamin and Shweta Varahaswamy, there were Swayambhu idols of these in these Himalayan regions. So in order to protect these Himalayan regions, they had to have a strong military garrison established there. Because anything, it could be some nomadic tribes or some lawless elements, weather. To protect our pilgrims and our merchants there, you needed our military garrisons to be set up all across. So that is how they went right across to Tibet.
From your book and presentation, I come to know that why India remained as the richest country economically and why we remained as a superior trade power was that the states were behind the traders, merchants.
Totally.
And very good. I never knew that our states, ancient kingdoms, went in war with different places to protect our maritime, business interests.
Sure,
Yes.
definitely. Coming to Tibet, a very interesting personality from 17th century. 17th century, you had Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, you had Lachit Barkhupan of the Homs. Just similar to them, there was a Lion King of Ladakh called Sengye Namgyal. In fact, I think it is thanks to the, I would say, present government, central government. In fact, after the revocation of Article 370, a big statue was set up of this emperor. Otherwise, nobody even knew about him. Sengye Namgyal is a statue. So this Sengye Namgyal fought the Mughal expansionism from the west. In fact, they wanted to come into Ladakh, so he fought it. In the east, he opposed Christian missionaries in Tibet. So he conquered Western Tibet. So the king of Nagari, who was in Western Tibet called Guge, Sri Dakpa Tashi, was under the influence of Christian Portuguese missionaries. In fact, they set up a church in Rudok. And there was a full danger of the entire kingdom become Christianized. So Sengye Namgyal attacked the place and annexed it for at least a quarter of a century. So a very heroic ruler who fought the Mughals in the west and fought, let's say, missionary activity in the east by actually conquering Western Tibet. Very interesting personality.
Perhaps the first king, as far as I know, who fought with both Abrahamic faiths.
Totally. I mean, very interesting. And that is from Ladakh. So, in fact, thanks to, if you ask me, a lot of people say, after Article 370 revocation, what? Just keep aside the political part of it. But historically and culturally, so many things have happened. One of those things are actually also the commemoration of, Sengye Namgyal. He was always there in the hearts of the Ladakhis. But, from a more symbolic and a more, I would say, political push to it. That really happened the recent few
years. Yes, in fact, I have a suggestion. We have to write books, people like you, on each of them, Venkatesh, each of them. Yes. Because we don't know anything about them. We have to write about them in detail, their victories, their wars, how they worked to protect our civilizations.
Totally. I agree, sir, completely. Okay. Then we come to Southeast Asia. I'm going to the Pacific, Borneo, Brunei, all those areas. So I start with about 2,200 years ago. You have two different texts which mention Mauryan anti-piracy operations in the Sunda states, that is between Java and Sumatra. Here, basically, so that's Shivendra, the famous Sanskrit rhetorician from Kashmir, and also a Tibetan Lama called Lama Yeshod in Gyor Bon Yur San kind of text. They mentioned that during this period, there was an attack by the aboriginals from Java. They were seafaring aborigines. In fact, a Sangam text say that there was a place called Nagapuram in Chavakam. Chavakam is nothing but Java. So even thousands of years back, you see, we knew about Java. And Indian merchants, you go there obviously to prospect. There were a lot of gems, there were a lot of gold. Suvarna Dvipa, even in the sands, you could find gold. So obviously they would go there. But when they go there, the risk is what? Pirates and these Austronesian seafarers would attack them. So in order to defeat them, this Mauryan navy was sent, and it brought them back in chains as per this text, as per this Shimedra's text. We don't know, but it at least went there and protected the Indian merchants and actually fought against these pirates. Then 1,600 years ago, very interestingly, we find Sarva Dvipa Vasan. So in the Gupta Empire, they had treaty alliances with 7 states, and they used to deploy their navy very frequently near those states. 2 states we find examples of Lankyasu in Malaya. So there was a great rebellion against this king in Malaya, in northern Malaya or modern day Malaysia, Thailand, that bordering region. He ran away to India and to the Gupta Empire, to Bharat basically, through a kind of ship. And he sought refuge there, stayed there for some time, and went back and came. So very interesting, Langkya Su. Then Champa in Vietnam. So in Champa was attacked by the Chinese, and the king of Champa formed an alliance with the Gupta Empire. He changed his name from Fang Gong Ben to Bhadravarman, and Bhadravarman became a great Vaidika proponent. His son was called Ganga Raja. Ganga Raja traveled all the way to Bharatvarsha and said, I want to spend my last time there. This alliance helped them because they counter-offensive, they pushed the Chinese back and went up till Nokom, what do you call the Hutum province. Modern day Vietnam, you have what is called a province area called Sapa, the mountainous areas. So pushing them right up till there, because of this Gupta alliance, and a very interesting, I would say, expedition and support, geopolitical support.
Very good.
Then a very interesting, I think this is well known to a lot of Tamil historians also, a great Pallava emperor called Nandi Varman III, also who took the name Avani Narayanam. See, a very interesting thing. People talk about Vaishnavism and Shaivism. Now, Nandi Varman III was personally a great devotee of Shiva, but he was called popularly also as Avani Narayanam. So, I mean, to all those people who talk about whatever, so this is the a very interesting example. So, Nandi Varman III dispatched a fleet with Nangur Udayan, who came from the same Tirtha Kshetra, the Divya Desham of the great Tirumangai Alvar. So that person, so you can imagine again, why was these people chosen? Because number one, they had faith. So they were trusted that they could definitely go there and fight. See, now to fight, to cross the oceans, go to a Thailand, go to conquer, you need to have a strong, will. Now, who will have the strong will? So these people from this Tirtha Kshetra were chosen. They had a very lot of martial ability. They crossed the ocean, went to a place called Takuapa in Thailand, and conquered it. Why? Now, this place is called the Isthmus of Kra. If you see the thinnest point out here, it is an alternative to the Malacca Straits. Now, Malacca Straits was under the Shailendra influence, right? So they were monopolizing trade. So by conquering this place, they opened this Isthmus of Kra to all the ships, east-west trade. So they could come here, unload their goods, short travel inland again to the South China Sea and put their goods back again. So it has benefited world trade greatly. So today we talk about United Nations, Convention for Free Navigation in the South China Sea, etc. Right? It's a classic example of free navigation through the conquest of Takuapa. Going next, I think a very well-known expedition, Rajendra Chola, Kadiram Kondan. He's called Kadiram Kondan only. Kadiram is Kedah in Malaysia. So this is a theater level operation. Now, in my book, I have used a Tirumala inscription to go by a battle by battle, I would say, coverage of this expedition. Very interestingly, this was a theater level operation. So in the entire Indian military history, you find rare example of theater. Theater level means you have 5-6 different theaters of battles, different geographies under different commands, which are then strategized at one central location. So very, very difficult to do. It was only done in the World Wars. So in World War, the landing in Normandy, going. So this theater level operation was conducted by Rajendra Chola. The reason was very simple. Shailendras are monopolizing trade and in fact attacking Indian ships, which were actually embarking on or going to their ports and were not paying them taxes. So a lot of the access of the Indian merchants were disrupted by the Sumatran Malayan, you could say, power. And a section of the Chinese court, as I mentioned earlier, the Songs, had supported the Shailendras. So to show power, to show sheer raw power. In fact, the Arab Suleiman said that the king of Zabag started talking himself as the greatest king of Hind. They considered themselves as part of Bharatvarsha, Dipantra Bharata. So Rajendra Chola was a great Digvijay. He had conquered up till the Gangai. Gangai Kondam, Kadiram Kondan, Rajendra Chola. He had to show his power. He had to show the power of a Bharata Chakravarti over there. That's why this expedition was launched, to break the monopoly of trade and secure the commercial interests of the Indian merchants.
In Tamil, we call him as Kadaram Kondan. Kadaram.
Yes.
Kadaram Kondan. One of the greatest things.
Sure. So Kadaram is nothing but Kedah in Malaysia. That's the. It was the capital of this Shailendra.
Yes.
So then, about 900 years ago, we had one more Chola expedition, which was the Veera Rajendra's Chola expedition. This was again in Kadaram. But this was a counter coup operation. So there was a faction which had actually, I would say, uh, taken over an Indian ally who was ruling over Kadaram had been deposed. So to reinstate him, this operation was launched. So it's a regime stabilization counter coup operation. Similar to the Operation Cactus in Maldives, we launched it to reinstate, president through our intervention. Similar to that. Then Kulatunga Chola. So in Kulatunga Chola's time, we find a lot of military bases established all across Southeast Asia. One of them in Temasek, where we have a Malayan source, was called in Sanskrit Singapuram, which is nothing but the modern day Singapore, which was actually founded, that same site later developed and, centuries later became Singapore. Actually. So another example of, again, to secure commercial interests. So most of these bases had a merchant city and a military outpost next to each other. Finally, I'll come to a 21st expedition. This is 600 years ago. About Devaraya II of the Vijayanagar Empire launched expeditions against the Hantawadi dynasty in Burma. So Pegu and Tenasserim, which were areas in Burma were actually attacked, and this was again to secure commercial interest, because see, that was a period when a lot of our naval might had been reduced, because if you look before the Vijayanagar Empire, because of invasions, there was a disruption in our naval strength. So a lot of the merchants, Indian merchants, were denied access to many of these ports. So such an expedition became necessary when the Vijayanagar Empire became stabilized and powerful, to actually secure the commercial interest for us. So that is the 21st expedition which we have. So these were 21 expeditions till 1680. Post that, as a legacy, I just have mentioned two expeditions in my book very briefly. One is Pamhaiba of Manipur, another great king, who was also a great devout Gauda Vaishnava, but he also attacked Burma and actually annexed large parts of the Irrawaddy Valley for 25 years. And obviously, we know that Dogra General Zorawar Singh's exploits in Tibet in the early part of the 19th century. So there's just a legacy of, let's say, obviously after the 12th, 13th century, because of invasions, the ability of, let's say, the Indian, especially Hindu rulers to, give expeditions abroad was drastically reduced, because obviously you're fighting for your survival, you're fighting for your preservation. But still, you have these small expeditions which continued as a legacy to that ancient martial tradition. So with that I would conclude my presentation, and this was, so as I think shown very clearly, there were no Alexanders, no Muhammad of Ghaznavis, no Robert Clives among us. Dharma Vivardhana Kunal's expedition, in fact, transformed Turkestan. That time, Xinjiang was largely made up of hunting gathering tribes called the Scythians, etc. Urban civilization was introduced. Agriculture was introduced. Similarly, in Yunnan, the first agricultural implements, which you find archaeologically, date back to the Mauryan period. They are very similar also. In fact, an Indian community called Shendu or Sindhu is mentioned as among the first agriculturists there. Indian kingdoms such as, Videha, Mithila, then basically also, Sindhu Rajya, Magad are also found in Yunnan at that same period. So you can actually find so civilization, urban civilization, agriculture, technology was actually introduced to this. So there were no famines. The British ruled about famines. There were no famines. There was actually agricultural expansion. There was no destruction of temples. There was actually building of new kind of centers. So that, in short, is, I would say, my book and the expeditions of it.
Fantastic, fantastic. It has taken 75 years after independence to have a work like this from a committed young, what I will call true historian like Mr. Venkatesh Rangan. I have a few questions. Of course,
Sure.
I went through your book. You have to please tell the viewers the countries or regions which were attacked by our ancient kings, and the kings or dynasties, so that it will be very clear for our viewers.
Sure. So if I may go from the beginning, so basically, so Chakravarti Jaya, as I said, we unfortunately don't know much about his dynasty, But he, as per that record, was supposed to have had an overlordship over the Volga region. So, they call it Turkey, Gog, Magog, etc. So, Al-Shams, Tabarish. So, right from Russia, Turkey, etc. He conquered, he marched up till the Mediterranean, conquered Syria, Palestine, what you call modern day Israel, Turkey, etc. So that countries which Chakravarti Jaya captured, conquered. Then the Mauryas, we have the Xinjiang province of modern day China, Yunnan province of modern day China, rest of China, Kazakhstan, which was, and also Java, as I was talking about the anti-piracy operation. So that's the Mauryan dynasty. Then we had basically the Gupta dynasty. The Gupta dynasty, as I said, Persia, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, the Xinjiang province again, and basically Southeast Asia, Malaya and Vietnam, Champa, as we can call it. Then we had the Chalukya dynasty, which was Iraq, the Al-Faw Peninsula in Iraq. Then we had the Pratihara dynasty, which was Zulfar and Dibba, which is modern day UAE, Ras Al Khaimah and let's say that region, the Ras Al Khaimah region, the Musandan Peninsula, and Basra, which is basically Iraq. That was the Pratihara dynasty. Then we had the Parmara dynasty, which is in Turkestan, modern day Uzbekistan, modern day Turkmenistan, modern day, obviously Afghanistan that time was part of Bharat itself. So that's the Parmara dynasty. The Gahadwal dynasty was, they say, China and Bhouta. So mainland China and Tibet. Then we had the Gupta dynasty, also Tibet. I'm sorry, I missed that, earlier on. Then we basically had, if I'm not forgetting, the Pallava dynasty, Tapuapa in Thailand, and large parts of, let's say, the North Malaya. The Cholas, obviously, large parts of Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, parts of Burma, southern Burma, Mon region of Burma, Panduranga, which was then in Vietnam. So large parts of Southeast Asia by the by the Cholas. Then we had basically then the Namgyals who ruled over Western Tibet. So several of them. In fact, if I can recollect right, I don't know if I missed anything. But maybe if I can just check also the Vijayanagar, Burma, as I had talked about. Then also, I think Lalitaditya again, Uttara Kurus, Kyrgyzstan, parts of Tajikistan and Tibet. Then Ghatwal, as I've told about, Mauryas also have mentioned. Yeah, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, these are basically freedom of navigation expeditions, Mocha in the Red Sea, Yemen, modern day Yemen. Bappa Rawal, Khurasan is in modern day North Iran. Pratiharas have already covered, Chalukyas have covered, the Guptas and Chakravartis. Yes, so I think I have covered most of the, I would say, dynasties basically and their geography. So in short, from Turkey, the actual expeditions from Turkey in the west to China, to Java in the south, to right up to Kazakhstan. So different kind of regions.
So it only shows that our kings from different parts of Bharatvarsha were engaged in this. So this Indic strategic, what we call mindset, was there throughout the Bharatvarsha. It was not specifically there in a particular region as such. It was there throughout. So from Cholas up to Lalitaditya, then different parts of Bharatvarsha, it was there. So this,
in fact, classic example is Rajendra Chola Uttara Digvijaya. It was with the great Digvijaya tradition. I mean, okay, you are Uttara Digvijaya, even the I would say Chalukyas. He was a Prithvi Vallabha. All this is the Digvijaya and Chakravarti tradition which continue. I mean, north, south, east, west, wherever basically.
I have a basic question. As a historian and a researcher, out of these 21 expeditions, which one attracted you the most and why?
Okay. So personally for me, I would say that from a very military angle, right?
Yes.
I would say that, so I would answer in two ways, from a military angle, from a perspective of, I would say, emotional angle, and finally from a perspective of, from historical, economic and civilization perspective. So from a military, I would say from a military perspective, I would say that the Chandragupta Vikramaditya's campaign, because this was a unbeatable alliance. The Sasanians are the golden age of Persia. The Huns are Attila the Hun. We know about Attila the Huns. So they're confederates, the White Huns. They're not fully related, but similar to them. Using different military innovative, launching elephants 14,000 feet above sea level. I mean, amazing sense of logistics of kind of it. So militarily that. Culturally, I would say Rajendra Chola's expedition to Southeast Asia, because the sheer breadth and the legacy till today. I mean, we have Angkor Wat, we have in Thailand, we have Brahma temples in Thailand, we have Bali. Even today our diplomacy is uh, affected by that, right? So I think that is culturally, I would say, very important. Emotionally, I would say Paramara Lakshma Deva's expedition, because I find that that period when Muhammad Ghaznavi and his descendants were attacking Bharat Varsha, I often used to wonder, why is it nobody is fighting back? So here we have an example of one brother sacrificing, saying that I will not rule. Please
Yes.
go ahead and fight
Yes.
them. I mean, what an example! If every single Hindu ruler had been so selfless, I mean, maybe the history of Bharat Varsha would have been different. So emotionally, that, and one way economically, I find, in fact, the Chalukyan expedition to Alfa Peninsula. Imagine, to protect your merchants, you have gone to the extent of fighting a very powerful maritime power in their own territories, like going and fighting a lion in its own den. So I would say economically that shows why even today, if we want to be an economic power,
Yes.
you have to be a strong military hard power. There's no
Yes.
escaping that. There's no escaping.
Yes. For me, it was interesting to see that 2,600 years back, one king went to as far as to Palestine,
Yes.
to see that their own beliefs were not affected.
Yes.
Very, very important. How we were able to go to that extent to protect their interest. It's not our interest, their interest. So we were, as you said, universal. We had universal outlook in those days.
And again.
Jagan, Mr. Jagannathan,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
you have any questions, or our viewers may have questions to Mr. Venkatesh?
Absolutely a riveting session, sir. One of the best sessions we have had. Very knowledgeable. And each minute of it, I thoroughly enjoyed the interaction between both of you. Lot of insights about how Bharat has been truly a Vishwa Guru, and lot of lessons from this remarkable work of history which we can draw today and inspire and build upon. And rightfully the central leadership is doing that in that path, but we can draw inspiration and take a lot of lessons from this work, sir.
You have any questions, Mr. Jagan, or any of our viewers have any questions?
Aravind, Balaji, our regular people who attend our programs, Dr. Ramakrishnan, sir, yes, you may go ahead. You can unmute yourself and ask, sir, please.
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah. See, my question is primarily about the existing, the cultural connect, especially if you see the Yazidis, who are basically in the Central Asia, or you can including Iraq and the ISIS territories, and similarly in the Southeast Asia, although they are in Buddhist religion currently, but they proudly say that they are the descendants.
Ramakrishnan, sir, your voice is...
So primarily, my question is, how much we are making efforts to connect with them. For example, currently, if you see, there is no puja that is happening in the Angkor Wat temple, but we have very good relation with Cambodia. So how can we use this and improve some of the temples? I think we should make them a religious place apart from cultural place with the cooperation of the local government. So this is my question: how much we are making effort for that? Yes, historically we have connect, no doubt about it. But what is the effort we are taking to take it one step ahead, apart from treating them as places of culture, why not they treat the places as a place of worship? Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, sure. So I would no, I generally agree with you, sir. I mean, it's a very very good thought, and that's a thought which has come to my mind also in many parts. So definitely,
if we could make temples in the Gulf countries, which is considered to be Darussalam, so why not renovate Bandar Abbas Shiva temple as a place of worship, or in Iran, which is in Iran, and why not in the Southeast Asia, where they're ready to, they are very much. I've seen Buddhists constructing Hindu temples and allowing us to do the our worship, including if you see the Muktinath temple, one of the Divya Desams, is actually the puja is conducted by Buddhist, but we are allowed to do our worship. Similarly, if you go to the southmost tip of Sri Lanka, there is one temple, Tennavaram temple of Vishnu, 6 feet. The puja is conducted by the Buddhist, but the Hindus are allowed to do the worship. So similar, similar arrangements which we could do with the rest of the temples.
Sure, sir. I mean, I would agree with you.
Yes.
Aravind, do you have any question? We at Veranda Club sincerely all urge all of you to buy this book. It is available from Subbu Books. And is it available on other platforms as well, Amazon, Flipkart, for now?
So see, it is available in Amazon, but we would prefer everyone to
yes, we should be as a Swadeshi effort, we should patronize our own.
In fact, I would say that recently my publisher is also running the Kerala Story campaign. So if you have watched the Kerala Story and you can let's say given your tickets, you get a 30% off on several books, very nice dharmic books, including my book. So I would say that please, I mean, there's no better place for you to go than go to Subbu Publications. Google Subbu Publications, go to website and have this amazing offer.
Yes, it's an excellent effort by Ritvik and Subbu Publications. Congratulations to them also for this wonderful work which they brought out. And other books also they brought out are very dharmic, very nice. And we should meet you in person very soon in Coimbatore, probably sometime, Mr. Venkatesh Rangan. Thank you for your wonderful work. Professor, sir, thank you for taking your time out through your busy schedule. And this afternoon we met and you have quickly, as much as possible, you have read the book and it is really amazing, and truly you have done the program in a very remarkable, fantastic manner, sir. And I can see the subject you enjoyed. That is very happy for all of us.
In fact, if I can just add here that I would really like to thank Professor Sabapathi. Actually, it was a very very interesting and a very erudite discussion. It's my honor that Professor Kanagasabapathi actually could discuss with me on all these issues. So thank you, sir. And
thank you.
Very motivating and very inspiring. Thank you.
Jagan, it is my pleasure and privilege to have this interaction with the young historian and scholar, Mr. Venkatesh. It's my duty, because his work is a commendable work. And some of us who are involved in the study of ancient and more present economic and other systems, as I said at the beginning, I never knew that Indian kings, Bharatiya kings, went outside apart from Cholas and fought for us for so many reasons, to protect our economic interests and other reasons. So his work is a very pioneering effort. So I must congratulate him again for the hard work that he has taken. I know how much effort it takes to study or go through all these documents, different sources. So many congratulations. In fact, I have no words. As I said, it should come in all different languages, vernacular Indian languages. And as far as possible, I will also try to help you. It should become part and parcel of the curriculum in universities, different universities, particularly history department and other universities. So my congratulations to Mr. Ritvik and Subbu Publications for encouraging this work. And we are all, in the journey of demystifying the myths created by these leftists and the anti-national forces. So in this connection, This is a very, very important work, and this is a very good evening. Thank you both, Jagan and Mr. Venkatesh. Wish you all the very best. In fact, I would urge you to write more and more on this aspect so that we can create a new narrative within the next 5-10 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ranganji. Thank you so much. Jai Shri Ram. Vande
Thank
Bharat.
you all.
Bharat.
Thank you.